Two people start with the same amount of money, same income, same age, same opportunities. 10 years later, one of them is ahead, but not by much. 20 years later, the gap is uncomfortable. 30 years later, it's irreversible. And by 40, they're living in completely different financial realities. Not because of luck, not because one worked harder, but because of something quiet, slow, almost invisible. Compound interest doesn't feel like power at the beginning. It feels like nothing. Right now, compound interest is probably being explained to you as a formula. Something like, your money earns interest, then that interest earns interest. It sounds neat, clean, predictable. But that explanation hides the part that actually matters. Time doesn't just grow money. It bends outcomes. And the strange part is, the bending isn't linear. It's delayed. For years, nothing seems to happen. Then everything happens at once. Imagine your financial life as a timeline. Not a straight line, but a curve. At the start, the curve is almost flat. So flat it feels pointless. You save a little. You invest a little. You wait. After a year, nothing changes. After 5 years, still nothing dramatic. After 10, maybe a small bump. This is where most people stop. Not because they're lazy, but because the feedback is insulting. You're doing everything right and getting almost nothing in return. It feels like the system is broken, but it's not broken. It's just early. Let's walk through the first stage. Your 20s. This is where compound interest feels like a bad deal. You put in effort. You delay spending. You make sacrifices. And in return, tiny gains. Numbers that barely move. You invest $1,000. It grows to $1,070. Maybe $1,150. That's it. Meanwhile, someone else spends everything, and their life looks better. Better clothes. Better phone. Better experiences. They look ahead. You look behind. At this stage, discipline feels like punishment, because compound interest hasn't revealed itself yet. Now the second stage. Your 30s. Something starts to shift. Not dramatically. Just enough to notice. Your money is no longer only growing from what you add. It's starting to grow from itself. You invest $10,000 over time, and suddenly it becomes $13,000. Then $17,000. You didn't earn that extra money directly. Time did. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Even now, it still doesn't feel life-changing, because the curve is still shallow, and life is expensive. Rent, responsibilities, expectations. So most people still underestimate what's happening. They see progress, but not transformation. So they slow down. Or worse, they stop. Right before the curve starts to turn. Now the third stage. Your 40s. This is where compound interest stops being polite and starts becoming undeniable. The same habits, the same investments, now produce outcomes that feel disproportionate. Your money begins to move faster than your effort. You add less, but gain more. That's the flip. For the first time, it feels like the system is working for you. But here's the catch. If you didn't build the base earlier, this stage feels completely different. Because compound interest doesn't just reward consistency. It punishes delay. Starting 10 years late doesn't mean being 10 years behind. It means being exponentially behind. And exponential gaps don't close easily. Now the fourth stage. Your 50s and beyond. This is where the curve goes vertical. Not literally, but it feels that way. Your portfolio grows faster in a year than it did in your entire first decade. And this is the moment people misunderstand the most. They look at someone here and assume they got lucky, or they had better opportunities, or they knew some secret. But what they're really seeing is time finally revealing itself. All those flat years, all those boring contributions, all that invisible growth. This is where it shows up, all at once. But here's where things get uncomfortable. Because compound interest doesn't only apply to money. It applies to behavior, to debt, to decisions, and to mistakes. Let's flip the story. Same timeline, same person, different choices. In their 20s, instead of investing, they borrow. Small amounts. Manageable. A credit card here. A loan there. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to smooth life. And at first it feels like a win. They get the lifestyle early. No waiting. No sacrificing. But debt compounds too. Quietly. Relentlessly. In the 30s, the balance grows. Not explosively. Just steadily. Payments increase. Flexibility shrinks, but it still feels manageable because income is rising too, so the problem hides itself. Then the 40s hit, and now the math becomes aggressive. Interest on interest, fees on fees. The curve that once worked for wealth is now working against them. And this is where the illusion breaks, because now effort increases, but progress stalls. They're working more, but moving less. The system hasn't changed. The direction has. By the 50s, the gap is locked in, not just financially, but psychologically, because compound interest doesn't just shape numbers. It shapes options. One person has flexibility. The other has constraints. Same starting point. Different curves. This is the part most people don't like to hear. Compound interest is not fair. It's neutral. And neutrality can feel brutal. Because it doesn't care when you start. It doesn't adjust for hesitation. It doesn't forgive delay. It simply amplifies whatever direction you choose. Over time. Now let's talk about the hype. Because everywhere you look, compound interest is sold as a miracle. Start early and you'll be rich. Just invest and wait. Let your money work for you. It sounds easy, almost automatic. But this framing hides something important. The hardest part of compound interest is not the math. It's surviving the early years. The years where nothing happens, where progress is invisible, where discipline feels pointless. Because those are the years that determine everything. And they're also the years most people abandon. There's another layer people ignore. Time itself is uneven. Life interrupts the curve. Job loss, health issues, family responsibilities, unexpected expenses. These don't stop compounding, but they distort it. And this is where strategy matters. Not just starting early, but staying consistent through disruption. Because compound interest rewards continuity more than intensity. A small amount, repeated for decades, will outperform a large amount, done inconsistently. Every time. So what does all of this really mean? It means your financial life is not defined by single decisions, but by patterns, repeated, scaled, over time. And those patterns don't feel important in the moment. Skipping an investment, taking on a little debt, delaying a year. Each one feels small, almost irrelevant. But compound interest doesn't see moments. It sees trajectories. And trajectories are hard to feel until it's too late to change them easily. That's the quiet danger. Not that compound interest is complicated, but that it's patient. It waits, while you underestimate it, while you ignore it, while you assume you'll fix things later. And then one day, the curve is already set. So here's the real question. Not how compound interest works, but where you are on the curve. Are you in the flat years, wondering if it's worth it? Are you in the middle, starting to see momentum? Or are you approaching the point where the curve accelerates, in one direction or the other? Because the uncomfortable truth is this. By the time compound interest becomes obvious, most of the outcome is already decided. And that leaves you with a strange situation. The most important financial decisions you'll ever make will feel the least important when you make them. Small, boring, easy to delay, easy to ignore, until they're not. So maybe the real power of compound interest isn't growth. It's commitment. The ability to continue when nothing seems to be happening. To trust a curve you can't yet see. Because once you can see it clearly, you're no longer choosing it. You're living with it. And the only question left is, if your future is already quietly compounding right now, in which direction is it going?